Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr, and if you've been here a little while you may have noticed some small changes happening in this channel, and they are all leading up to something a little bit bigger. Welcome to today's video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia, and today's Should You Pull video is going to be all about Emperor. Now Emperor is one of my favourite characters in the franchise. I love the way he looks, he gives me that bougie extraness I need to give me life, and he comes along with a new LD and a brand new event with his Lost Chapter, so we're going to go over the various things that you can do with this exciting new LD, as well as the event itself. So if that's all something that you guys are interested in, then stay tuned and keep on watching. Of course, don't forget to check out all of the social media links in the description box below, including Twitter, Twitch, Discord, and Patreon. Twitch this week. Tonight I shall be finishing Final Fantasy IX, or at least hoping to finish it, as it's something that's been a long time coming on my alternating weeks while I've been at work. But again, this is all going to be leading up to something bigger once FF9 is finished, so hopefully you guys will have something to look forward to after that. On Patreon, I always shout out one of my patrons at random every time I release a new video, and today that person is going to be Aurelius. So thank you very much for your support. I massively appreciate every single one of you guys that comes along on Patreon. I'm so glad that with the Would You Pull section of these videos, I'm able to give you guys a voice to be heard on this platform that I have here. Don't forget to check out all of the links for all of the different places you can look for more information on DFFOO, and of course don't forget to check out all of the other content creators out there besides myself. So the only character that gets anything new out of this banner is actually Emperor himself, and he gains an LD weapon. He doesn't have any reworks or anything like that, but quite frankly he didn't really need one, outside of the fact that his damage output did start to decline over the course of time. His LD fixes that in a massive way. So Hellish Gale itself is a AoE Brave HP attack that deals splash damage. It triggers all of his traps, even if they don't already have those traps on them, so it does do the extra Brave HP attacks before you do so. So normally you would have to use Dreary Cell, his EX attack, in order to gain all of these traps at once, and then they would trigger after the time had consumed, or you did something else with one of his skills in order to trigger them, and then they disappear. So with the LD skill itself, it actually just triggers them as if they're just extensions of the attack itself. So you're just getting Brave HP, AoE Brave HP with Thundercrest, single target Brave HP with Beckoning Blast, and then AoE Brave HP with Dreary Cell that also delays the person it hits. And then you also get an extra buff on it, which is Measure of Conquest, which raises his attack, his initial bravery, his Brave Overflow, and gives him Brave Regen. So it brings his stats back up to where it should be. However, the real power when it comes to this LD comes from his HP plus and Bravery plus variants. He gets his attack increase with every Power Stone or everything he gets from that, which is great because he really does need it, and then Hellish Gale itself will deal more damage. But the variance of his bravery and HP attack becoming triple plus means that they trigger any traps that are on the enemy before you actually perform the bravery or the HP attack. And most importantly, it doesn't consume the traps that are already on them. So if you manage to get this off while they still have all three traps on them from Emperor's EX attack, so Beckoning Blast, Thundercrest, Dreary Cell, then your HP plus goes from, I mean, his HP plus originally was one of the worst in the game, and it goes from one of the worst to being, honestly, one of the strongest by triggering all three of these traps and then doing a Brave HP attack after it that also refunds some of the bravery. So it really just counts up. And let's also not forget that when Dreary Cell triggers, it also delays the enemy by one turn. So Emperor's biggest weakness before was against single target, because he didn't really have any way to capitalize on this damage except for using his EX. Now if you're against a single target, you're able to just continually delay the enemy, and I've seen clears of early DEs like DE6 using Emperor by himself because he's just able to repeatedly use HP pluses in order to keep triggering Dreary Cell before it actually runs out. Though you do need to be careful with this because you realistically need to combine Emperor with some way of reducing your opponent's speed or having delay in your kit outside of Emperor, because those buffs or those debuffs, those traps, only last for one turn. So if they get their turn before Emperor gets his turn after he's given them the traps through the EX, he's not going to be able to capitalize on that by using his HP pluses. Fantastic during a summon, really fantastic during a summon, and if you have got other characters that have got delay in their kit, then you're going to be able to just absolutely continually keep them delayed. Characters like Garland will work really well for this as well because he doesn't take up debuff slots, so you can actually just make really fun team compositions. However, with Emperor, All of this is like really fun and really nice to have, but being realistic, there aren't very many cases in which you will need Emperor from now until the time in which he gets his burst. The best reason I can think of to go for Emperor is so that you don't have to go for his LD later, because Emperor is released alongside some very, very strong characters with their LDs when he eventually gets his burst weapon, such as Sellers and Aerith, who are both extremely powerful. And obviously, the same as we had with Ultimecia not that long ago, pulling for Ultimecia as LD or Emperors brings them up to standard with the current release of content. But it doesn't really push them above and beyond to a point where you have to have the character. Emperor is really powerful. Like, the ability, all the stuff I said earlier about the ability to just continuously trigger Dreary Cell and keep that delay just going and going and going can be really powerful in the right situations, and his damage output is now much, much stronger than it was before. But like I said, if you have other characters that are in your debuffing role, maybe you pulled Kefka, maybe you've pulled other characters like Trey from back when, who had a similar concept to what Emperor does, there aren't many cases in which you will actually have to have Emperor. But if you get him on a free pull, or if he's a massive favourite of yours like he is for me, he's an extremely fun character to use, and being able to abuse mechanics like this in its own way can actually be really, really strong in its own right. Artifacts wise, you want damage. Emperor is a damage dealer. Give him attack, give him his C50, make it so that that attack stat is as high as physically possible, because now that you are able to trigger through his HP plus and his LD all of his traps on your own turns as well as your opponents, then you're going to want to make sure they're doing as much damage as physically possible. So get that attack, get that C50, and then you'll be all good to go. So now let's take a look at the event itself, or the chaos that's going to come along with Emperor's Lost Chapter. And the enemy that we're going to be facing here, the first wave you're going to face off against the moths that Rinoa had to deal with, and most of the gimmick here is the fact that they have a high turn rate. So obviously Emperor's main gimmick here is to interrupt that turn rate, and the same is going to apply to the actual boss of the event, which is the Ferrum Scorpion, which is a variant on FF7's Guard Scorpion. Now again, the gimmick here is that the enemy likes to repeatedly take turns it wasn't supposed to take. So basically, after a while, when they start charging up bravery, or when you notice that they're targeting themselves, or like you'll see A or B in their targeting reticle, what they're about to do is gain a bunch of bravery and then immediately use Ferrum Laser, which is a gain bravery and then AoE magic HP attack. So basically what you want to do, and what you're supposed to do here, is use Emperor to interrupt that, and then use his traps to make sure that they have a lot less bravery when it comes to actually, you know, when they go to use their HP attack, meaning they'll deal much less damage. They have some slight debuffs, like they have some speed down, they have some defense down, and they do like to buff themselves with attack and defense, and they'll poison you as well. But basically, just try to make sure that they're not able to function in the way that they necessarily want to. So in terms of the challenge quest, Kefka will do this very well because of the blind and the HP silence. And if you've got attack downs all over the place as well, all of these attacks that they do aren't necessarily going to hit very hard. The tail rush attack that they do as well does attack very, very often. We're talking like maybe 10 or 12 bravery hits, something crazy like that. So if you want to make sure that your bravery is as high as you can while you're able to, and just continuously just unleash damage wherever possible. Honestly, as I've said before with more recent events, Chaos is getting to its closing stage, so really there's no reason why you can't have a little bit of fun with the regular Chaos mission, and if you want to use the same characters you're going to use for the Chaos Challenge, there's no reason not to do that. I do that quite a lot. But there's no reason why you couldn't take a fun team, like the one I've built here for an example is a Type 0 team. So like Trey does a similar function to Emperor in that he has all of his traps go off. He's going to be able to make it so that he's able to control that bravery as much as possible. He's got his instant break mechanics as well, which obviously don't hurt. Then you have 9, who has shields and able to bring the defenses up a little bit while still dealing a large amount of damage. And then you've got Rem, who's got the healing covered. So she can pass the turns on to the other 2, who are very capable of dealing large amounts of damage. In terms of the summon and the friend, Leviathan I always really like when I'm not sure what else to take, because I really like the speed down debuffs, and I think that it's because they're guaranteed to be doing HP attacks, there's a very good chance that you'll end up under the threshold so you can gain that bravery gen as well. And a Mid-Italian is just a great go-to in terms of friend unit. Now with the Chaos Challenge, the biggest issue you're going to have is that you don't really have a healer that's synergy with this particular fight. Furion can heal himself, but he can't until at least later on when he gets a rework. He can't really heal anybody else. Whereas if you've got Kefka and Emperor as well, those two characters don't really play very well together because Kefka and Emperor are absolutely chock-a-block full of framed debuffs. So if you've got Kefka, then you don't really want to be taking Emperor, and if you're taking Emperor, then you don't necessarily want to be taking Kefka. That's not to say that you can't take them both, because you actually can. I've seen many clears that use Kefka and Emperor. Just be very, very careful in what point you're timing each of these debuffs, and don't go off using Hyperdrive and inframing all of your debuffs if you're planning to use the EX attack on Emperor and inflicting 3 more frame debuffs afterwards, because it's just not going to gel well together. So while it makes it more difficult for you to sort of time everything, you've got like debuffing auras, the speed down's going to be fantastic, and you are going to be able to finish it with those two if those are the only 2 options you have. Emperor's banner mates aren't fantastic. Like, we all know I love some Gilgamesh at this point. I never used to, but I do now. And Gilgamesh does have delay in his kit, so if you've got Emperor's LD, then Gilgamesh isn't a bad character to take along with you, and the chances are I'll probably find a reason to take Gilgamesh with me because I like him. And then Furion just isn't very strong right now. He's going to take a little while before he like climbs the ranks, but he definitely does when he gets his LD and his burst later down the line. But realistically, you're just going to use him as a battery and as like a way to keep your HP above the score cap. Summons wise, because you have no healer, I would very much suggest Alexander, but if you're confident in Kefka's ability to shut off HP attacks through his HP silence or anything, Leviathan is also a really solid option to compound alongside Kefka and maybe even Emperor's speed debuffs as well. So now we come to the big question of the video: should you pull on Emperor's Lost Chapter banner? Now, it pains me to say this, as a huge fan of the Emperor and as fun as his kit is, and I love the things that you can do with it, I'm honestly going to suggest against it for a lot of players, because honestly, the only reason I personally feel is worth pulling Emperor's LD now is to not have to when his burst is released, because while Emperor looks like he's super powerful and he gets all these procs off on all of his traps, he does all these crazy things with Dreary Cell, he doesn't actually add an awful lot to your party except for these shenanigans and gimmicks that you can do with the Dreary Cell procs. His LD itself is just kinda nice damage and gives him the stats that he needs, but what you're really after is that HP plus. And you do actually have to cater your party to Emperor in order to be able to capitalize on this frequently, because you need the speed downs and the delays, which you could just bring other delay characters anyway, in order to get Emperor to a point where he's able to proc the Dreary Cell as frequently as he can. Because as I said earlier, those debuffs only last for 1 turn, so if they go off before Emperor gets his turn again, then you're not going to be able to do the crazy things with his HP plus. However, you might want to pull on it because the Dreary Cell procs and because playing around with stuff like that is extremely fun for you. It is a great way to do that. His banner is really poor, unfortunately. Neither Gilgamesh nor Furion are very strong characters right now. You're not going to be going into this banner for either of their EXs, and this is coming from somebody who has used Gilgamesh a lot. He is not a very strong character comparatively to a lot of others, certainly not in this day and age, and Furion is even worse up until he gets his rework, at which point you could always go for his EX then. If you've got your debuff rolls covered by Kefka, you're not going to have any issue with the challenge quest. You don't need Emperor to do that if you already have anything for Kefka. Even Kefka's EX by itself can do a lot of work as long as you have another character built up that can take it on with him. And honestly, there are other banners with Kefka's burst on them that are just much better. Like, as much as I don't think that you should be pulling on Kefka's own banners for either like Freya or Aerith, they provide things that neither Gilgamesh nor Furion can, and then when Realm and Strago come out, both of those characters are actually very good, so you could even pull on that banner if you're still after Kefka's burst. So ultimately, while I think that that Emperor is really strong, his banner is just really poor compared to a lot of things around it, and the only reason, as I said, that I would personally go into this banner if I weren't just a huge fan of Emperor and just wanted him for the sake of wanting Emperor, is to pull on it so that you don't have to pull his LD when characters like Celes, like Aerith come out, who are also really strong and feature Emperor's Burst on them. So it can save you a little bit of heartache later down the line, but how much resources are you really willing to plug in order to do that? So now to finish off the video, it's time for Would You Pull? Your guys' chance to get an opportunity to use this platform to have your own voice heard and tell people whether you would or would not pull on a banner and why. So this time around, it's a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to this particular banner. 59% of my patrons have said that they would pull on this banner with tickets, 24% of people said no, they wouldn't pull on this banner at all, and 6 people said that they would pull on this banner for gems. Now it seems like the general consensus for this is what I've said earlier, and that a lot of people want to pull for Emperor now so that they don't have to when his burst comes around. However, some people are going to be skipping it entirely. Zeltic here says, I will of course use the free multiple and hope for the best, but I will not spend tickets or gems because I want to save up the resources because I'm very low with everything and I really want to get Gladio and Lightning's weapons. Now Gladio and Lightning are 2 characters that I know a lot of people are waiting for, so it makes sense that if you are low on resources to start saving now because obviously you can't pull on everything. God Horror Kid says, even though I like the Emperor's gimmick, I'll skip it. I have to gather more resources for the upcoming months with Wall, 8 and co, but Emperor is still a great unit in my opinion. He's hella fun, but never skip a free pull. Now that's also very true because obviously there's going to be a free pull with this particular one, so if anyone gets lucky with getting Emperor's LD, then obviously you're going to want to use him. The same applies to Kefka's Burst. Aurelia says, it's a tough call because I love the Emperor's kit, but I need to save some resources for the upcoming banners. But the deciding factor was seeing that Celes' LD was on the other banner when Emperor's Burst comes around. I don't want to have to pull on 2 banners at that time, so I will try to get the LD now with tickets. So again, it comes down to there being a wide spectrum of some people saying they're going to pull with tickets, some people saying they're not going to pull at all. And then Atoy Project says, I'm doing gems. It's part of a long-term pull strategy to maximize challenge quest completion. Emperor LD now almost assures 5 challenge quests, 2 now, 3 next year. Also, Emperor's Burst Run is stacked with quality LD, Celes, Aerith, Eldnash and Aranea. See, I only mentioned Celes and Aerith there, but Eldnash and Aranea are also released alongside Emperor's Burst. So picking up his LD now means I can skip him and then spread my resources over those other LD banners. I'm not tapping gems again until Gladio, so gives me time to recover. So yes, there are 5 challenge quests mentioned here that you can use Emperor on. So if you're wanting to do a long-term thing, then that's not a bad idea either, because you'll have this particular event. He's going to be featured in Strago's event because he's the Lost Chapter banner that accompanies it, and then all of the banners that accompany his burst, at least having the LD, is going to mean that you're going to have an easier time doing that as well. So thank you all very much for your comments. It hopefully will give people a little bit more scope beyond my own as to whether they feel the need to pull or not pull on a particular banner. And if you guys would like to have your voice heard on this particular thing, then definitely check out my Patreon link in the description box below. So that's going to be all for today's video. Let me know in the comments below whether you plan to pull for Emperor, whether you plan to skip him, whether you've got a long-term strategy pull plan in line ready for all these banners that are coming in the near future. Obviously don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share this video out, and obviously click that bell for notifications on any future Dissidia or other videos that I might be making in the near future. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I am making small changes to my channel over and over, like just over the course of time, like my visual effects and sounds and banners and things like that, but it's all leading up to something a little bit bigger down the line. So I hope that you guys will come to enjoy that, and there's going to be content that's going to be added to what I already do, so hopefully you guys will enjoy it. Anyways, that's going to be it from me, so I will see you guys in the near future. Thank you very much for watching again, and I'll see you soon. Take care.